Good morning. So this morning we're doing a very quick review of descriptive writing. What is descriptive writing? It's writing that literally describes in an interesting way an event, person, or animal or thing, anything. All right. So we need four things to for our descriptive pieces to be effective. And when I say effective, I mean that it is interesting to the reader. We can visualize, we can hear. Those are the things you want to achieve in descriptive writing. So four things are literary devices, adjective, subject versus predicate, and types of sentences. So that's what we're going through today in this video. So we're going to look at literary device. A literary device is an ornamental use of language that allows the reader to visualize the sentences. So it creates a picture for us, the reader. It appeals to, or they rather appeal to five senses: sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. The literary device, ladies and gentlemen, when we use them, it allows our writing to become interesting. It allows us to describe in a fantastic, interesting way, so that people, it's like a movie. Think of when you're doing your descriptive pieces, you want people to see it like it's a movie reading out, and your writing needs to exude that. So our first literary device that we can look at is a simile. This is a comparison of two things using as or like. So our example of a simile is George is as tall as a coconut tree. Now clearly nobody can be as tall as a coconut tree, but what we're trying to emphasize here by comparing George to the coconut tree, his height, that he's really tall for a human being. Please note that when you use a simile, there must be some level of exaggeration between the two things being compared. For example, George's height is emphasized or highlighted by the comparison to the very tall coconut tree. So there has to be some level of exaggeration. The next one, metaphor, is a comparison of two things not using as or like. So the metaphor and the simile are similar in that they compare two things, but they're different in how they compare. The simile uses as or like, but the metaphor does not. So our example of a metaphor is, go back to George. George is a tall tree. Same comparison, we just didn't use the as or the like for the metaphor. And these can be very interesting because it's certainly more interesting than saying George is tall. We can actually see, like, we get a visual of a literal tree, for him to be compared to. So our next device is alliteration. This is when the same consonant, please note I said consonant, not vowel, so no A, E, I, O, U's for alliterations. Every other word, or rather letter in the alphabet, is a consonant. So the same consonant is repeated at least 3 times at the beginning of words in a sentence. That is an alliteration. Alliterations are great to use because they give sound to your writing. So for example, you can have Anna's mother had a bouncing baby boy in December. Suddenly it gives energy to your work, Anna's mother had a bouncing baby boy in December. So we have bouncing baby and boy. Our second example can be what is known as a tongue twister. I'm not going to try a tongue twister on here, people. So I'm going to make up something very short. Bouncing baby boys bounce on beds. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 B's, and that makes it our alliteration. You can try the other. She sells seashells, etc., etc., etc. Not embarrassing myself on here. So next we have our personification, giving non-human or inanimate objects human qualities. So for example, I'm going to give this chair that I'm sitting on. Maybe the chair is kind of old and the screws are falling out and it's squeaky. Instead of saying the chair is squeaky, I can say the chair groaned in protest as Mrs. Samuels Thomas sat on it. Isn't that more interesting? It's implying that I'm fat, but we'll move on from that. Onomatopoeia. I love this one. I use it all the time. So it's like this: clang, or boom, or crash. Onomatopoeia literally is a word that imitates the natural sound of a thing, thereby creating a sound effect that mimics the thing that it describes. Let me reverse. Let me rewind. That was a mouthful, right? A word that imitates the natural sound of a thing, thereby creating a sound effect that mimics the thing it describes. Isn't it fantastic? I mean, English is just out of this world. So, or example, on the onomatopoeia, bang, clown, click, anything, any sound. That's onomatopoeia, sound word. And these are very important to use to really bring life to your paragraph or your descriptive essay if you're writing an essay. Another one that I really like to use a lot because it is the rhetorical question. A question that does not require an answer, it is used for effect or to prove a point. So I'm sure all of you have, at some point, your mother has said to you in a tone, aren't you going to clean your room? Now, when she says this, ladies and gentlemen, she is loaded. She's saying, haven't I spoken to you about a cajillion times to clean your room? She doesn't expect to answer now, and in fact, if you answer, you're in trouble. What she's saying is, I've spoken to you a million times, get that room cleaned. Now, the example I have for my class is of a very perplexed young man standing in front of a blackboard or a whiteboard with a sum at the back of it, and the teacher is saying, could you go to the board and work this sum, Josh? Now, clearly this teacher knows that Josh don't know what he's doing on that board, but it's to prove a point that Josh should pay attention in class. So rhetorical questions can be very effective. Use them, fantastic. Adjectives, these are like the best ways of really bringing your paragraphs or your essays to life. Okay, and if you're not off or you're not so clear on the use of literary devices, the adjectives work just fine and you can use them. So an adjective describes a noun or a pronoun. We know that a noun is a person, place, animal, or thing. A pronoun replaces the noun. So you have they, it, etc. So our example is an anaconda is a huge snake. So listen to that sentence. An anaconda is a huge snake. Now, if you had just written an anaconda is a snake, it's kind of boring, right? But when you put that huge, that adjective, it affects the noun snake, and then you can almost know the reader or the teacher, being me, I can visualize the huge snake. In fact, that movie pops in my head, Anaconda, with J-Lo from decades ago. I'm showing my age, just ignore that. Next, subject versus predicate. Now, I know this is kind of getting into the boring side of English language, but we need to know it. The subject versus the predicate. The subject of a sentence it tells whom or what the sentence is about, and we need to have this. If a subject is missing from a sentence, we don't have a sentence, we have a phrase. And in order to have great paragraphs or great essays, we need to write deliberately like this and use our subjects versus our predicate. So now that we know what the subject is the person that the sentence is about, the thing, the place, etc. The subject, so examples of subjects. Lady is a subject, me. Mrs. Samuels Thomas, I will be the subject of a sentence. So for example, Mrs. Samuels Thomas, that's me, is walking down the street. Now, the is walking down the street becomes the predicate, and the predicate simply means any other word. Let me just repeat and go slowly on this one. The predicate is any other word that describes the subject of the sentence, aka the rest of the sentence. So people, ladies and gentlemen, when you're constructing your sentences, and these are the pillars of your paragraph, we need to see clear subjects, we, us, the teacher, meaning, and clear predicates to tell us that you know how to write. So an example is, Mrs. Samuels Thomas is walking down the road. I am the subject. The predicate is walking down the road. Immaculate Conception High School is a wonderful school. Subject, immaculate. Predicate is a wonderful school. My dog ran away yesterday. My dog is the noun in there, the common noun, and ran away is the predicate. So that noun, my dog, becomes the subject of the sentence. The ball deflated in the middle of the game. The ball is the subject, predicate deflated in the middle of the game. So please know that the predicate again affects the subject because it tells us what's going on with the subject. So the ball deflated in the game. So we're gonna get to, we're in grade 7. Yes, this is primarily for grade 7, but if you're in grades 8, 9, 10, it's a great kind of review of what you already know and how to use it. So types of sentences, another very important thing to know, fundamentals of descriptive writing. Our sentences are declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. We learned this way in grade 4 and 5, and it follows us throughout our high school or our secondary experience. So declarative, this is a sentence that makes a statement about something or someone and ends with a full stop. So please do not mix it up with the imperative statement. The imperative statement or sentence, it gives a command. It ends with a full stop or exclamation mark. So let's repeat. The declarative declares, root word declare. The imperative gives a command. The imperative implies hurried, haste, and ends with a full stop or an exclamation mark depending on the degree of passion with which you are giving the command. So we know what is declarative. An example of a declarative sentence is the coach times the runners with a stopwatch. That's a fact. You can see that the coach over there stopping the people with a stopwatch. An imperative, on the other hand, let's go back down to this slide of imperative. Give me the phone number to the school. That's a command. So we know that we can see the differences. Or let me out of here. Let me out of here. That has a little bit more passion to it, and we know that that's a serious command. So we've just done imperative and I'm going up past the side, and declarative. So now we're going to look at interrogative. Now the word interrogative thinks the root word is interrogate. So naturally it is, this sentence asks a question and it ends with a question mark. So we need to know the endings and things like that, because when we as teachers mark, we look for ending, punctuations, their use of it, etc. And interrogative, who are the owners of the restaurant? So we want to know this and use this in our descriptive writing. Use these different types of sentences to show our our how often we are with the English language, because this is the subject is English language. All right, so we did imperative. Let me see if there's another one. So let's review. There are 4. There's declarative, there is interrogative, there is imperative, and I missed one out, exclamatory. Exclamatory is like a shout, a command, a shout. Get over there! Exclamation. Ow! Anything like that, exclamatory. So we have come to the end of this video, and let me just state again that this is primarily for grade 7 students, but it can be a quick review for any other student in the secondary system. So have a great rest of the day.